we thought you'd appreciate that entrance tune.
Exhausted now.
Are you? Yes. Well, my goodness.
Thank you very much. It's been great seeing you all.
He's out. Goodbye. Thank you so much for being here. First of all, you're the last panel of the day, so you probably are actually exhausted. But we'll start with you, Andy. We'll go down the line. Tell us how Belfast has been treating you today.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, right. Sorry.
How's today going?
Sorry. I'm very old. I don't hear very well. It's been good. It's my first time in Northern Ireland. My first time in Ireland. So it's all quite exciting. We only got in last night, so I haven't seen much of it yet. But it's been good. Everyone's been really nice. What can I say? I've been overwhelmed with Irish hospitality. It's been great.
How about you, Femi? How has it been for you here at the Comic-Con?
It's been hi everybody. Thank you so much for allowing us to come. It's been wonderful to be here in Belfast, first time. I've met some really great people, and here we are now doing the panel.
Yay. Lovely.
Oh, sorry. No, it's a terrible place. I can't. And the bloody Irish, they just get on my nerves so much since I arrived here. But
they talk so fast, don't they, Paul? I can't understand the word they're saying.
Apart from that, it's been marvelous. So thank you all for all your kind words so far. And it's always great to see fans, especially at our age. We can't see much at all now. So it's nice to see and hear you. Apart from Femi, of course,
No, I'm up there,
who is the youngster of the brigade. But I'll hand over to my older colleague, Tim Rose, here.
Many, many years ago, when I reached my midlife crisis, I thought, why didn't I listen to my mom and become an architect like she wanted me to? But then it's meeting all the fans and realizing that maybe I didn't waste my life after all. And it's just, I love meeting you guys and finding out that you enjoyed all the stuff we did so much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the memories. Well, as you can see here, we have a lot of cosplayers that come to Comic-Con, and I'll go down the line. I'll start with you, Femi. What does it mean for you to see someone cosplaying as your character?
It's an absolute honor, especially when I see males cosplay Ula. I think that's really fantastic too. But I mean, who would have thought that I was the first one to start off the Twi'lek sort of fandom and cosplay? So to see people cosplay and be brave enough, because as you know, I don't wear that much. It's pretty drafty and cold, but I think the actual design is wonderful. So it's just wonderful to see people see me dressed as Ula. Your turn.
Oh, what?
Sorry,
Who?
I'm so sorry.
What do you want me to say?
Welcome.
I haven't seen anybody cosplaying as Watto. I think they'd have a bit of trouble getting into the costume and flying, of course. Which I learnt to do especially for the role. So yeah, I mean, it amazes me the time and effort that goes into a lot of the costumes. It's great. I remember one of the first conventions I did. It was early days, and so you couldn't buy the costumes in those days, and so people used to make their own costumes. And there was one guy, it was in Los Angeles, I think, and he had a stormtrooper outfit made entirely out of used toilet rolls. I thought that was and gaffer tape, held together with gaffer tape. Brilliant, I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Very imaginative use of a discarded product, Very ecologically sound, I thought.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Andy. In the early days, as Andy said, when the cosplayers, they used to ask us to judge the cosplayers. And of course that soon stopped because we got pretty jealous of how good they looked most of the time. But also, you always made the mistake of choosing the wrong person to win, which left everyone else in the entire cosplaying audience hating your living guts. So we could never make the right choice of cosplay. It's always a very difficult thing to do. So I'm always most grateful now that the choice of the king or queen of the cosplayers is left to other people. What do you think, Tim?
Well, I'm brought to mind, we were taken to Japan to do a celebration there. And the Japanese had made cosplay costumes of General Grievous. Now, if anything was not meant to fit a human body into, it was that character. Yet they had worked out how to do it. They were just, I describe Japan as being as close as you can come to going to a place on Earth while feeling like you're on a completely different planet. So, as you said, they invited me to be a judge for the cosplay competition. And one of the fans had brought me this Japanese outfit, so I thought to honor them, I would wear my outfit as a judge on the cosplay. And as I'm standing behind the stage, I'm looking down, and it was shorts and a light top. And all of a sudden, I thought, I ran over to one of the Japanese people. I said, this costume, this thing that I wear, is it pajamas? Am I about to appear in front of 20,000 people in Japanese pajamas? Oh, no. It for summertime, it for cool. I said, oh, thank Christ for that. Oh, sorry. I was very relieved, I'll put it that way.
Obviously, we're here to discuss Star Wars, so I'm going to geek out for a moment. Don't mind me. I'll start with you, Andy. There are so many options now for Star Wars fans to get into kind of the newer shows like Mandalorian and Boba Fett. But do you have any particularly favorite Star Wars characters other than your own?
No.
Just you, huh?
I don't think so. No, it's all not. No, I mean, the number 4, which it is now, which was the first one, that was always my my entry, and a lot of the elderly people here entry into the Star Wars universe, and I was totally blown away when I saw that, and the later ones I haven't followed them so closely, and I think for me, I mean, I always wanted to be, when I saw that first, I wanted to be Han Solo. You know, which young guy wouldn't want to be that? A space buccaneer, you know, great, and flying the Millennium Falcon.
It's very cool. Yeah.
So yeah, he would be my sort of go-to character. I mean, I wanted to be him.
Yep.
I even bought the hat.
Did you?
Yes.
What about you, Femi? Do you have another favorite character?
Me? Well, I get this question asked quite a bit, and I'm just really privileged to be able to play Ula, especially when I auditioned for the part and I had no idea what the part I was auditioning for. And as I said, being the first Twi'lek, it was just a pleasure to be able to play her, and as I still don't understand, she's the most memorable part in the Star Wars universe. So yeah, no, it was great, and I know I got killed off, but it's just really, really good part, good character to play.
Yeah, it's true. All actors think theirs is the best part in whatever film or TV they're doing. And of course, Greedo was no exception. And when we first did the very first one, we couldn't wait to leave. We couldn't wait to get out of the costumes. It was all going to be some kind of terrible B-movie. So none of us knew at all what the whole outcome of the thing could be. Because you've got to remember that when I made A New Hope in 1976, the only other sci-fi films around were always B-movies. So we thought we were all going to be in Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. And so did the crew. The crew gave us absolute hell because they thought we were all going to be in Attack of the Killer Tomatoes for 2 or 3 weeks or so. Until they realized that George Lucas actually kind of knew he had a great deal of faith. He had to have a great deal of faith in what he was doing because most of his reputation and money was plowed into this movie, which he'd left America to come and do. So for us in the first one, it was very up in the air, and all the characters didn't mean nothing, particularly to Alec Guinness, who didn't even know where he was, let alone what movie he was in. And Alec Guinness was the great big star of the first one, because he had 50 movies up until that point, all of which were pretty successful. everyone else, Carrie, Mark, Harrison, Kenny, Peter, everyone else were fairly unknown. Every kind of people knew Carrie because she was the daughter of Debbie Reynolds and Eddie Fisher. So they knew who Carrie was, but they didn't know Mark from Sixpence or Harrison. So they had quite a weight on their shoulders. And boy, I think they did pretty well considering. Of course, when it came down to the second movie, there was no problems, particularly with the money.
Well, because I am so much younger than Paul, when he was doing his performance, I was a kid. Me and my buddies, we'd go to the cinema, but when this Star Wars movie came out, we went back to the cinema 5 times in a row, and we had our feet up on the seats, and we were flying X-Wings, and we were just living the dream. So I would have to say that from that moment, watching that first movie, and it's never changed, I want to be Han Solo, obviously. Just like Andy. We're in total agreement there. Who else would you want to be but Han Solo?
No one's cooler than Solo, for sure. Now, guys, get your questions ready. Just raise your hand. And give it up for Dave, everybody. This is about the 19th time I've said that.
Dave. Woo!
Dave's the man.
Yo, Dave, take him off.
Dave.
If you have a question, just raise your hand. We've got one right over here on the left.
Lady at the back.
Can I ask, how long did it take you to get your costumes and your makeup all done?
Andy, you can start this one.
It took me no time at all. Because I was CGI'd, or the character was CGI'd. But they did make me wear, when I was on set, I was on set with the other actors. And so the animators would know who to CGI out. They made me wear a sort of lampshade hat, which was quite dangerous. It had a metal rim. And if I got too close to anyone, they would tend to sort of, there was danger of, sort of limbs being cut off. And actually, on the first day of shooting, I had a scene with, before the pod race, in the pod hangar. And I had a scene with Liam Neeson. And in this scene, we have a confrontation, and I say this sort of, I get angry with him. And George said, get angry, really go for him. So I was like, no, okay. So because Liam's very tall and I'm very short, they put me on a flight case so we'd be eye to eye. And I'm wearing this hat. And he said, really sort of look him in the eye and spit in his face. Okay. So the line goes something like, you may have won the small toss, Outlander, but you will not win the race. And I really gave it to him. And I struck him with the hat right on the bridge of his nose. Oh, thank you.
You were in the room with the man that did it.
Thank you.
Don't encourage it.
Don't encourage it.
It's time for your nap. Shut up. And I split his nose open. It was really quite. He was pouring in blood, and it was all a bit. It was very, very tense for a few moments. But makeup and stitches, and it was fine. It was fine. He still hasn't forgiven me.
Well, mine's very short. It took about 4 minutes to get my leather and lace costume on, and then it took 4.5 hours to get the green paint on because I'm so dark. And back in those days, they hadn't experimented with paint, so they had these tiny little pots and tiny little sponges, and if they put the first layer on, which was yellow, and then buffed it up, and then white, and buffed it up, and then green. So it took 4 hours. So I was due in studio. Well, yeah, I was in makeup at 4 o'clock in the morning, freezing my butt off. But it was all sorry, got a little one there. Sorry, but it was all worth it though.
How long does it take to get off?
Oh yeah, 13 showers. 13, I was chatting like, oh no, I still got a bit here, and at the time I was doing Cats in the evening, so I had to get rid of my green makeup and then put my cat makeup on, so it was fun. Wow. It was worth it.
Heavy day. Tim, what do you go
Akbar was really just a Halloween costume. You know, the head, you could pull straight over the top, tuck the neck inside your costume, slip on your forearms. And what's always bothered me about him was, what would he look like without his clothes on? Because he's got this big calamari head, big calamari arms, two little people feet at the bottom. You know, he's a very strange character if you stop to think about it, really. He went on very quickly. However, after performing in it for a couple of hours, and your body temperature going up to 104, 105 degrees, and your entire body being drenched in sweat, it could take a lot longer to get him off. The head came off okay, but I quite often had to have two dressers holding onto one arm while I grabbed onto something solid so that they could pull my soaking wet foam latex back off of my skin. And I usually would end up popping off and rolling across the floor and then getting up and repeating the process on the other side. So, yeah, getting out was always much longer than getting in.
Yeah, Greedo was fairly easy compared to Femi and Andy and Tim, really, because Greedo was just the head, because the rest of the costume was actually made out of parachute silk. So it was very light, and even though in 1976 in Elstree Studios, it was a very hot year, it was like this year.
And Paul still likes to dress in silk.
Yeah, true. It was easy to wear the bottom half of the costume. The head was made out of what was called a life mask in those days, not done like today, where you'd have the makeup plastered all over your body and you'd be there for 3, 4, 5 hours. They put a plaster of Paris on your face on the front bit, that went hard, and they put it on the back bit, and then they put the two bits together and then poured in a sort of India rubber solution, which was the shape of your head. So then they gave that to the modelers and the costumiers, and they built up whatever character they decided with the alien was going to be. So that's how Greedo's head came about. And everyone thinks, actually, with character heads in the earlier days, that it was hot. And it wasn't so much hot, but there was a props table at Elstree, very long, about the length of this stage, and everyone in the cantina had a head, and they were all on the props table. So naturally, being stupid, inquisitive actors, you try somebody else's head on, not for long, because they smelt to high heaven inside. So once you got it on, you took it off as quickly as you'd put it on. So that was the only trouble with my costume.
That's why you didn't want to put that Mandalorian helmet on today, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Great question. We've got another one here on the right in the front row.
You're all very well known for your lines and your scenes. What do you think of the, when you say it's a trap, and of course the who shot first, what do you think about whenever fans tell you their questions and answers to those things?
Well, thank you for the question. The who shot first controversy, for 10 years, it seemed to be okay, the scene. And then after 10 years, I think Lucasfilm were pressurized by a percentage of the moral majority in the States to make Han Solo a bit more of less of a cold-hearted, bloodthirsty killer, more a kind of nice guy. So that's why George changed it. And I mean, it was his toy. So he could do what he liked with it, really. I mean, my preference was the original scene because it made Han Solo the character that everybody loved, which was a space cowboy who just blows away a bit of alien fluff when he comes across it. So I loved the original idea. And in fact, the original script just said, we played the scene, and then at the end of the scene, it says, Han shoots the alien. I didn't even have a name in those days. So, and I didn't even think that scene would be in the final movie. I thought my bits would be with Jabba the Hutt, because Jabba the Hutt was originally an actor called Declan Mulholland, and we did lots of scenes with Harrison in front of the Millennium Falcon walking up and down, and those were the scenes that I thought would be in the film. But when George cut Jabba and decided it was going to be the big puppet that you now see in the movies, everything changed, and so he had to throw in the cantina scene where Harrison shoots Greedo because he hadn't got anything else, basically. And in fact, the timeline of that scene is that Greedo gets shot, dies, and then I appear in the next scene. So I said to George, George, that's me, you know, in the next scene after I've been killed. And he said, all Rhodians look the same. So that was kind of my opinion on that. You know, it was... Anyone else? Tim?
It's a trap you were asking about. I can honestly say that after it started becoming this whole internet meme thing, that the number of people standing at my table went up. So from that standpoint, I would be an absolute fool to complain about it. I also like to say, you know, they all come, don't you get tired of writing It's a Trap? And I said, you know what, I'm really glad they picked that line and not, we cannot withstand firepower of that magnitude. Because that would take all day long to write on a picture. But I'm happy that I managed to do something that makes so many people happy. And if it makes you happy for me to say it's a trap, then it makes me happy too. So I'll never get bored with it.
True.
Very popular on Twitter as well. It's a trap. Very popular GIF. We have a question right here on the right.
Hi, big fan. Question, did any of you get to keep any souvenirs from your time in the movie?
I did.
Did you?
Yeah, unusual. You didn't want anything in 1976 from a movie. It was all junk. But I have to say, all the guns we had were real guns. They were a job lot of German-made Mausers, little pistols, which had been decommissioned, so they obviously didn't work. And the props department had sewn or glued on little bits of plastic on the front and the back to make them look like ray guns. And so Harrison had one, and I had one of them as well. And at the end of my little bit, I thought, oh, this is cool, this gun. I'll take it home for my kids. So I gave it to my kids to play with for 2 or 3 years, and eventually one of them snapped the plastic front bit off, so I threw it away. That gun in today's market
You're regretting that now.
would have put them through private school and college. So yeah, that's the thing that I kept, and I regret throwing it away.
And I mean, in my case, it was quite tempting to take my collar, but thank goodness I didn't, because I don't know if any of you know that I was invited back to do the special edition, and that was 14 years later. And the first question they asked, they said, you have to fit in your original costume, and you're going to have everything. So if I had taken that, it would have been very embarrassing. yeah. So that was like, don't take the props, don't take anything.
Well, because I wasn't actually on screen, I never actually sort of handled anything. I never had any props or anything. But what I did take was the script. And all the scripts were numbered with your name on. And had to sign this agreement to say that you're sworn to secrecy, you wouldn't tell anyone what the plot was, and that part of the condition was you hand your script back in once you'd finished with it. But I didn't. And I've still got the script. I have no idea if it's worth anything.
Worth a load.
Is it really?
Yeah, they're worth a lot of money.
I'm getting straight on eBay when I get home. No, it's a nice memento.
I never took anything, but we were given things. I had a Blue Harvest Horror Beyond Imagination t-shirt.
Wow.
And a Blue Harvest Horror Beyond Imagination baseball cap. And not knowing anybody would ever want them, I used them to protect myself while doing DIY in the house, covered them in paint, and threw them in the garbage.
Wow.
I also had an original Revenge of the Jedi t-shirt.
Oh, lucky you.
And a lovely story about that was there was this American kid, and he had gotten hold of the contact details for everybody on the unit. And most of us were all British. Well, I call myself British because I've lived in England for more years than I've lived in America now. Most of them were all British, and he systematically went through the technicians, the performers, and called everybody to get their stories about making the movie. And while he was talking to my friend Dave Barkley, who was in Jabba, he said, I was talking to this kid, and all of a sudden I heard his dad come into the room, and he goes, are you on that telephone again? Do you know how much money you've cost me on international phone calls? Get the bleepily bleep off that phone now. And I felt so sorry for this kid. And I was talking to the other guys, and somebody knew what his address and everything was. So I said, I know what I'll do. I'm going to send him my Revenge of the Jedi t-shirt. So I send him the t-shirt, and next thing I know, my phone rings. And from America, he calls me back. He says, Mr. Rose, thank you so much. And this was 1991 maybe, or, not that long after we made the movie. Thank you so much. These t-shirts are going for $700 in America.
No.
Kid, send me that t-shirt back. I need that t-shirt back now.
We have another question here on the left.
I know that none of your characters actually have a lightsaber in Star Wars, but if you did, what color would you go for?
Green.
Green.
Multicolored. A rainbow.
Blue.
I actually have another request. We heard some of Watto's lines, and actually you touched on it earlier. And I don't know if I'm speaking for anybody else, but I would actually love to hear you say the line, if you could, it's a trap. If you wouldn't mind saying it.
1, 2, 3. Oh, get center stage.
It's a trap. You got to spin, don't you? You have to spin first before.
That's
I like the original better.
We have time for maybe 2 more questions max, and then we've got to let them go. We've got one over here. Do we? Nope. There's a gentleman over here with his hand up as well. Yep. Okay, we have time for 2, so we'll go with this lovely lady, and then you, sir, if you want to come up. Thank you.
What did it feel like being your character?
Very good question. For me, it was kind of strange because I'd never played an alien before, so I didn't kind of really know how to feel inside the costume. It's a really good question. When you're just playing a human, you've got some kind of background to go to if you're playing a human being. But with an alien, it would be like you playing anyone that you can imagine. So really, it's both liberating and terrifying at the same time because you don't really know how to feel. In the end, with a lot of us in costumes, the costume did the acting for us, so we didn't have to feel too much because we kind of looked okay. But I shouldn't be telling you that because then you'd all be doing it tomorrow morning.
Giving all the secrets away now.
Yeah, absolutely. But
Now,
it's a
Paul's
great...
quite right. The costume, you can do in action, but it doesn't necessarily work for that character that you're doing. And the whole secret of the animatronics is to do your performance, but then watch it back on the monitor. And you have to believe the life of that character as you're watching it. So they very much do tell us who they are. There's a lot of things they can't do at all, and there's a couple of things they do really well. So you find out what that is, and you exploit it the whole way.
Yeah, hi. For myself, especially when I went back and did the special edition, and George Lucas and Rick McCullum were directing me when I had to go into the pit, and I faced the Rancor. And they said, the Rancor's just over there, just act on that. And I just thought, well, it's more about feeling, and I felt defeated, I felt scared, I felt that I let myself down as Ula. So it was all, I had to act on those feelings.
When I first went to, when they called me into audition, I was shown a line, just a drawing of Watto, what he looked like. And I said, can I have a bit more to work on? And they said, well, he's a space junk dealer. So he's a bit of a wheelie dealer, he's a bit rough, it might have possible mafia connections. So I thought, well, you know, rough backstreet, so he's obviously going to be a bit gruff, you know, so a bit like that, but it's mafia connections, or you give it an Italian accent there, so and they liked the voice, and that was it, and sort of everything else came from that, really, and it's extraordinary. Once you sort of you click into a character, things tend to grow, and you just kind of then once you're playing a scene, you just kind of sit back into it, and it kind of takes care of itself. It's an odd thing, but once the character takes over, you kind of sit back and let it do its thing. If that makes any sense.
You've all
Thank
seen
you
Magic
so
where
much.
the...
Thank you for your question.
What do you say? You've all seen Magic where the ventriloquist doll takes over the ventriloquist. It is actually a bit that way. What happens as these characters grow, they take over some part of your brain and inhabit it, and they take on their own life to the point of you can do a character for so long that somebody asks you, oh, I just want you to do the voice. And you say, well, I can't. Why not? Because I don't have the puppet on my hand. You know, you need the two of you together to bring that bit of your brain back into it. So, or at least I do. I might be very weird. I don't know.
You are weird.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
We have one question here in the middle.
We've talked about all the positives of your filming during Star Wars, but was there any bloopers or anything where like someone messed up a line or something like that, like a funny moment or anything like that?
Yeah, many. We're all jumping in here. My favorite was Jeremy Bulloch. He had one line, Jeremy, as Boba Fett. Take Captain Solo to the cargo hold. So Jeremy practiced this all day. Take Captain Solo to the cargo hold. Take Captain Solo to the cargo hold. Take Captain Solo to the cargo hold. He got to the point where they were filming and they went, Jeremy, action. Take Captain Cargo to the Solo hold. It's not true, but Jeremy told that story, and it was a great story, I think, and it's the actor's story.
Admiral Akbar had a chair, and the chair could spin around, and then the chair was on this long polearm, and all we're supposed to be in this very advanced civilization. Underneath it was like Ben-Hur, because there's these two props guys with 2x4s, and they had marks on the floor for when I was talking to my assistant, I would be back there, and then they would spin me back to look out the window and watch the action, and they would stop on the mark that was on the ground beneath them. And so I'm watching the battle and getting ready to say it's a trap and all that, and I spin back to bark some commands to Gerald home, and then they spin me back the other direction. But this chair was mounted on the top of a 1/4-inch shaft of a washing machine motor, and when they spun me back and stopped me, my momentum was such that the shaft snapped off. I was strapped in the chair, and myself and the chair both flew out the window of the spaceship, which was 6 foot off the floor so the props guys could be underneath to move the chair. And I went through the window, 6 foot down, and the only thing that saved me was I was still looking out the nostril going, this doesn't feel right. Is this what I'm supposed to be doing right now? And I wished that they would have taken that outtake and made the window crack around it and just sent Akbar. Well, they did send me out the window in the end, didn't they? But that would have been so great as an outtake for the movie.
In the second one, the Revenge of the Clones, there was a scene that there's Watto's first scene where Anakin comes back. He's out sitting outside his shop. He's Annie, little Annie, Jedi. What do you know? That bit. No, please. Before preceding that, there's supposed to be this little scene in Huttese. Now, we were in the middle of the desert, stuck in a hotel in the middle of the desert, and they were always on movies, scenes get rewritten all the time. And what they do is they shove the new scenes under your door the night before. So you've got time to learn, well, that's the idea anyway. You've got time to learn them in the morning. So these scenes came through my door about 4 o'clock in the morning. And we have to get up early anyway because we've got to drive 3 hours into the desert to the set. And I pick up this scene, and it's supposed to be in Huttese, and it's not. It's in English, and I'm thinking, no one's actually translated this because there, believe it or not, Huttese does exist in some sort of form. There are proper kind of translations of Huttese. So I can't get hold of it. It's too late to do anything about it. So I arrive on set with this new scene, and I say to George, George, this scene is in Huttese and hasn't been translated. And he went, yeah, Andy, you're right, yeah. So what are we going to do about that? Everyone's ready to shoot. There are 2,000 extras, there's a big crane, it's in the middle of the desert, and everyone's set up, ready to go. And George says, do you remember any of the Huttese from the first movie? I said, well, let's kick something around. So in the middle of that hot sun, everyone waiting to go, George and I write a scene in Huttese. It was great fun. I think it's the only time George Lucas ever collaborated on a script. So that was quite fun.
That's brilliant.
We love to leave it on a light note like that, and we so appreciate your candor and your amazing behind-the-scenes stories. And I think I can speak for all of us to say that your performances mean so much to so many people, myself included, with my voice, sorry. That's not me choking up, that's just my voice. But on behalf of Monopoly Events and everyone here in Belfast, thank you so much. We are so grateful you could be here with us. Please keep the love going for your cast of Star Wars